This is a rebroadcast of BK on the Air. If you hear a telephone number, please don't call, as you will become one with the dark side of the Force.
But I was going into Toshi Station to pick up some power converters.
You know, I've really got to make sure that everything's in place and where it's supposed to be, and I'm where I'm supposed to be, and where I'm sitting, and if I'm facing toward the way I'm supposed to be facing. Oh, the microphone's this way. I got to turn around because, man, I just got back from vacation, so it's always interesting to come back from vacation and back to where you, I would say, belong. Some people wouldn't agree with that, but it's where I like to be. Let's put it that way. The place I like to be is right here, AM 1450 and 100.3 FM WBHF at our broadcast central right here in beautiful northwest Georgia, just northwest of Atlanta in Cartersville, Georgia. We got a beautiful view outside our station here of the downtown area, and when the weather is beautiful, it's nice, and even when it's bad, we get to look at the pretty rain and the lightning, but not today. Very mild, very cool, and very awesome outside the window today. And awesome inside here, because I'm looking across the way here at Alan Sanders' cute little face over there, sitting across from me on the other microphone in a seat that I kept warm for him while he was doing his show.
Boy, you did a generous job.
Yeah, don't have as much coverage like you said as before, but I try harder. Don't ask me what that means.
Okay.
Just we'll keep it secret of how I keep a seat warm. Yeah, so we had it's been a beautiful.
It's aromatic.
Okay, if you say so. We were going to go to the beach originally this week, but we didn't go. We changed our plans and went up into the North Georgia mountains, the beautiful area of North Georgia, a town called Blairsville, just outside of Blairsville at a lake, one of our many lakes in the state of Georgia called Lake Notley. And it's a beautiful place up there, and beautiful weather, too, by the way. I mean, I love it when it's mild, when I can go out and have a good time and sit on the pier or sit outside and do something and just have maybe a ceiling fan on or off out on the porch area. And it's like 75, maybe, and one morning it was 59 when we got up. So I had a good cup of coffee out there with me and sitting there. You know, it takes a lot for Walt into darkness and I to not wear shorts outside, short pants. You know, cargo pants or something.
I know.
I mean, it takes it has to get down into the lower 50s before if I'm casually dressed, I'm still in shorts until it gets like into the lower 50s. That's just the way I've always been. I don't know why. I was that way when I was a kid. So I found out weight had nothing to do with it. I've just always been that way. I'm like, oh, you're that way because you're big fat guy. I'm like, no, that's not why. It may be part of it, but I've just always been that way. And I grew up in the South where it's hot.
Right.
In the summer, and never got acclimated to it and never got used to it. They're like, oh, you get used to it. You're from here. No, I'm not. I never got used to being hot.
Well, I'm used to it in the sense I can function in it. Doesn't mean I like it.
Function, yeah. I just never got to where I found it, oh, okay, it's going to be 100 degrees today. I still just really didn't like it. But it is the humidity, as we well know. When the humidity's high, it can be 80 degrees and pleasant, but if the humidity's up there in the 90%, it feels still pretty bad. When it's like, it just feels muggy.
Just getting to your beach versus the mountains.
Yeah.
I like the beach. Don't get me wrong.
I do too. I love it.
But as I've gotten older, there is something so cool about being in the mountains, being in a cabin, being outside.
For sure, yeah.
Seeing actual mountains. Now, granted, not like the same as the Rockies, but you still. You see cloud cover come in. You see wisps in the valley. I mean, I love that.
And the only reason that I prefer the beach over the mountains, and it's only me personally speaking, is I grew up in the mountains. So I'm from northeast Alabama, where the Appalachian runs through, the Fort Payne area, goes all the way through North Georgia and all the way up through Tennessee. It's the same mountain range. So I am used to being in the mountains. But I do like going back. We live near, we're in the suburb of Metro Atlanta, but there's no mountainous here. But still, we got a lot of parks and woods here, though. Mm-hmm. But the mountains, I kind of grew up in that area, and my grandparents lived there. So now I go to the beach because I didn't grow up there, and it's just a different terrain, and I'm not there all the time. So that's the only reason beach edges out mountains just a little bit. Now, if I grew up at the beach, maybe it'd be a different story. Oh, I love going to the mountains because I didn't grow up there. It's just really nice. Now, the mountains out there and the hills and the mountains in California are even different than the ones here. We saw them out there in 2017 when we went out to Los Angeles, and they're like, oh, these are brown hills. They don't really have a lot of vegetation on them. It's very odd looking to see. But yeah, different style. I feel recharged, re-energized. I think it's great. I'm just glad it didn't interfere with my Saturday, because that's usually what it does. When I go out of town to the beach, I'm usually gone on the weekend. So I didn't miss either Saturday, the last Saturday or this Saturday.
Awesome.
But a lot of things, I'm glad I didn't have that outpatient procedure that I was going to have, because I got better on my own. Yes, it does happen sometimes. You do get better on your own, so don't be so quick to go under the knife under something, even if they recommend it. And I found that out on my own. I had a condition where it said, if you're under 65, this condition may reverse itself if you've had it less than a year. So I said, oh, and mine did. But what was interesting, though, is I was never told that by the surgeon I talked to.
Really?
So I'm like, yeah. Why didn't they not tell me that?
They want to make sure they collect their paycheck.
Because you know what I did? I went and looked it up and researched it myself. Now I know there's kook sites out there that'll tell you anything. Yeah, if you spread peanut butter all over your body and flap your arms like a bird on top of your house, it'll go away. No, I'm not talking about those type of places. I'm talking about a lot of the reputable places where you read about, oh, I've got this. What could this mean? Or I've been diagnosed with this thing, and they say I need an operation to get rid of it. What about it? And then I did some research, and that's what I found out, and it happened to me, and I was so happy.
Well,
believe me, the procedure I was going to get, without getting too graphic, the procedure I was going to get, the recovery time was going to be worse than the procedure. It would take 45 minutes to do to me what it would take to do to me, but I'd be out of it. I'd be down. I wouldn't be able to lift anything heavier than a pencil for probably 3 weeks. I would have to take it easy and recover, and it would have been a horrible recovery time. But I'm glad I ain't going to have to go through that.
Yeah, I've, knock on wood, haven't had to have any kind of surgical procedure that would knock me out so far.
And sick. We already talked about you before. Everything's hitting you all at once one day.
One day.
You're going to have everything imaginable, and you're going to disappear like a Thanos finger snap.
It's gonna be like
you're going to
and there's ash floating away.
But you'll be like when it hit Star-Lord, because as he faded out, when they faded out in the Avengers, that the little remnant of their face, you could see the outline in the dust as it went away, and you'd be like Star-Lord. You're gonna go, oh no, it's like I'm gone. That's it. I had so much I wanted to do that was left to do.
This is kind of like the last thing I wanted to have happen.
I hadn't been to England to the Royal Shakespeare Company to do that tour
yet.
I
still need to go to the Globe. Come on.
Yeah, that's great. So, but we're going to have fun today. It's BK on the Air. 770-386-1450 is our number. If you want to call us and join in on any of the fun or the discussion or add to it, or if I say something that sparks your memory, they go, hey, I remember that, but I remember this about it, and he didn't say that. I'm going to call him. Or if you want to correct me, some people are listening to make sure I say the right thing, and I don't so much mind that, because if I make a big faux pas, that's fine. You can call me up and tell me that I was wrong about that and tell me what the right thing is. But we're first up, after we hear from take a break, Golden Rage of TV with Pat McCormack. He's getting fat today. Talk about getting fat. He's going to be talking about Fat Albert today. Nice Saturday morning. So we'll hear from Pat McCormack and Fat Albert, and when we come back, we'll talk about, Michael Gambon passed away. I know that. Dumbledore from Harry Potter. And Alan and I are both big Harry Potter fans. My wife and I are Harry Potter fans. Alan's whole family, all of us are Harry Potter fans. So we'll discuss him and talk a little bit about him and share some thoughts, too, when we come back. It's BK on the Air.
How about a movie, lovely lady?
As far as dog, but with a flick of my bick, I can see you're a hick.
Coffee, tea, or a flick of my bick?
Flick of the bick, sir? Oh, a flick of the bick, sir? Why just light up when you can flick your bick? It's smooth, easy on the thumb, and you get thousands of flicks from a single bick. The Bic Butane.
Shh, stop flicking your bick.
They call me Yuck Mouth, 'cause I don't brush. Oh, I like my teeth like this. They call me Yuck Mouth. No, I won't brush. How's about a little kiss? I got roast beef in my teeth, got some chicken too. Ouch, that's a cavity. Hey, that's new. Well, if you don't brush your teeth, then kids you too can be a Yuck Mouth.
Don't be a Yuck Mouth. Another nutritional message from the ABC Television Network.
Now back to the show.
Oh.
Greetings, fellow classic TV fans. Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids was a Saturday morning show that debuted in 1973. Created by Bill Cosby, the character of Fat Albert was based on a real childhood friend named Albert Robertson. The show followed a group of African-American kids living in the inner city, with each episode focusing on different moral lessons and issues faced by young people of the day. Besides Albert, my favorite characters included Mushmouth, who sounded like the dentist administered an overdose of Novocaine. Also, William Bill Cosby, based on Cosby himself, who, like Fat Albert, was often the voice of reason. There was Russell Cosby, Bill's younger brother, who was actually based on Bill's real-life brother. But my personal favorite was Rudy Davis, a sharp-dressed, smooth-talking, cocky fellow who really was a good-hearted kid who usually learned his lessons the hard way. Despite the inevitable downfall of its creator, the series was notable for its positive messages, educational content, and diverse representation of black culture. It tackled peer pressure, drug use, and racism in a way that was relatable and engaging for young viewers. Fat Albert, in particular, became a beloved icon of 1970s pop culture, inspiring a comic book series, a movie adaptation, and numerous other spin-offs and merchandise. The show's catchy theme song, Gonna Have a Good Time, was composed by Rick Shelton and Edward Fournier. It was performed by singer Michael Gray, and the background vocals were done by Miss Betty Davis Eyes herself, Kim Carnes. This is Pat McCormick with your Retro TV trivia from the Golden Rage of TV. Be sure to check out my podcast, Retro TV Radio, available on most podcast platforms. It's full of classic TV celebrity interviews, and I'm adding more all the time. And while you're there, be sure to subscribe and leave me a positive rating. And speaking of positive rating, now back to BK on the Air.
For taking us into this Saturday morning that we all know and love growing up watching Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids. I was there every Saturday morning. I was glued to television and watched. Fat Albert was one of the many shows that I did watch, but I tended to gravitate towards CBS for some reason. I mean, if it wasn't on CBS, I didn't get to watch it because CBS had all the most of the Filmation shows by the animated production company Filmation, and sometimes live action stuff, and most of their shows were on CBS, and Fat Albert was no exception. But is another one of those shows. Remember that Mary Poppins did this. I was always fascinated as a kid when live action would be mixed with animation, when you had the live action guy intermixing with the animated characters, and they did that in Mary Poppins. They've done it in a lot of things since then, but they also did it in Fat Albert, where Bill Cosby would be standing in the junkyard talking to you, like Pat said, and telling you kind of about, well, today we're going to learn about this guy who was not so nice of a guy, but he liked to play games, and he would set it up for you. And then even during the title sequence, the Cosby Kids would write on the sign or hold the sign saying what some of the credits were on the sign, and they'd throw it off screen, and it would go off to Bill Cosby, and he would catch it like he was interacting with them, and he was there. So just a lot of people pull from their childhood to make things. That's a perfect example, too, with Bill Cosby, remembering growing up in his childhood. Oh, I'll make an animated show out of all these guys that I knew. Red Fox did it with Sanford & Son because Red Fox's actual real name, I think, was Sanford. And he made that about people that he knew growing up when he did, and talking about St. Louis, Missouri, and all this stuff. So you got to admit, a lot of people's imaginations and stuff when they write things that it's a lot of times based on their own life, but they change. The names have been changed to protect the innocent, but some of those characters carry over into their stuff that they create later.
Well, I mean, those memories,
those
impressions, though, they can become the impetus to create something.
Right.
Obviously, based on doesn't mean it's the exact. And we shouldn't do that. We shouldn't read into when someone's influenced by the friends they grew up with. Doesn't mean that they're the exact. It's not a biopic.
Right. And Hugh Wilson, I mean, he turned his experience as working in radio into a show called WKRP in Cincinnati. He just changed the letters and took a little bit of this radio station he worked at and a little bit of that one and made it into one show. He knew Dr. Johnny Fever growing up. He knew a guy like that. He knew a guy like Mr. Carlson.
Right.
He knew that. So personal experience. I mean, how can you not pull from all of that? Even if you're a writer creating something, your past influence in your life growing up has to influence stuff like that. Your creativity, because where do you think it comes from?
Well, the first rule, if you've ever taken a creative writing class, they say write what you know.
Yeah. How can you write what you don't know? You can write what you know and put it in a situation and go, okay, I'm going to write about an experience I had, but make it a science fiction film. Mm-hmm. But it's mostly what I heard and learned in these characters, but I'm going to bring them into this setting. People told Gene Roddenberry, Star Trek's just wagon train to the stars. The Western wagon train. They were on a wagon train going out into uncharted territory in the West, encountering weird and interesting people and things and conflicts and fighting things. That's what Star Trek was. We're on this ship going out into space how much does Shakespeare rub off on people sometimes when they're writing stuff? You and I talked about that. We did a live production at the Grand Theater here in Cartersville once of. What did we do? Oh, we did Shakespeare, but we would do a Q&A after it to talk to kids that would come to see from the schools, and you were given the speech and talking to them about, hey, I'll bet some of the things that you like and watched, I bet some of it's based on Shakespeare, and we started naming things or whatever. Science fiction movie Forbidden Planet is The Tempest, basically set in space. Mm-hmm. There's a lot more examples of that.
Yeah, when we did the play Twelfth Night, that's basically was remade into the Amanda Bynes film back in the 90s that my girls loved called She's the Man. It was a soccer movie.
It's Shakespeare.
But it's really the story of a girl who has to dress like a boy to fit in because she wants to be on this soccer team and finds out her twin brother is actually trying to get away with something, and it's the whole mistaken identity and cross-dressing. I mean, you think that's new?
It ain't new. You think just when you think you come up with the cutting edge something or things like that, like millennials, I'm like, that's been done before, right? Yeah. It's okay. You can be creative and build on that. But it's been done before.
That's why put your spin on it.
That's why coming up with something totally original today is incredible.
It's hard
to come up with something totally original. So, well, an actor passed away. I think they reported it yesterday, but you never know when actors and celebrities pass away because it may be 2 or 3 days before. They'll just release it that day. Some of them are immediate, I guess. They'll release them. But one did pass away yesterday that Alan and I are both a big fan of in a franchise that we're huge admirers of.
Proof of what I've been telling you right from the beginning, Cornelius. All your fear-mongering about you-know-who never fooled us for a minute. We saw your lies for what they were, a smokescreen for your bid to seize control of the ministry.
Naturally.
No, Professor, he had nothing to do with it. It was me.
Most noble of you, Harry, to shield me. But as has been pointed out, the parchment clearly says Dumbledore's army, not Potter's. I instructed Harry to form this organization, and I alone am responsible for its activities.
Dispatch an owl to the Daily Prophet. If we hurry, we should still make the morning edition. Dawlish, Shacklebolt, you will escort Dumbledore to Azkaban to await trial for conspiracy and sedition.
I thought we might hit this little snag. You seem to be laboring under the delusion that I'm going to, what was the phrase? Come quietly. Well, I can tell you this. I have no intention of going to Azkaban.
Enough of this. Take him!
Well, you may not like him, Minister, but you can't deny Dumbledore's got style.
Yeah, that's right.
No, that's awesome.
Clip there of Dumbledore from Harry Potter and from Fox News. Michael Gambon, Harry Potter's Dumbledore, dead at 82. So that's just one of the clips that I wanted to play because I do like that when he's like, and we watch it. Now when we watch the films, and I didn't read the books, but now when we watch the films, I'm noticing, it seems like Dumbledore knows everything. He's got everything kind of planned out, mapped out. He even when he gives Hermione the time turner where they can go back in time, and he sees them later when they come back. He's like, she goes, "We did it, we did it, Professor." He's like, "Did what?
Did what?" And then he's like, "Does a little bye,
bye." Yeah, from this particular story is from Fox News, and we'll talk about it too as we go along. He was known for his role as Hogwarts headmaster Albus Dumbledore in 6 of the 8 Harry Potter films. The legendary British actor's successful career spanned over 60 years. He was cast as the much-loved Dumbledore after the death of his predecessor, Richard Harris, who died in 2002. While Harris played the character in the first 2 films in the Harry Potter franchise, Gambon played him in the remaining 6, as we know. He once acknowledged not having read any of J.K. Rowling's best-selling books, arguing that it was safer to allow the script rather than be too influenced, to follow the script rather than be too influenced by the books, because they were, in fact, movies at that point. As they were having a movie continuity thing, which sometimes, as we know, differ from books sometimes. Now, that did not prevent him from embodying the spirit of Dumbledore, the powerful wizard who fought against the evil to protect his students. The Irish-English actor star had long been recognized as one of the United Kingdom's leading actors. His work spanned television, theater, and radio, and he starred in dozens of films, from Gosford Park to The King's Speech and the popular movie Paddington. He was also known for his part in the Dennis Potter's musical The Singing Detective. Gambon won the BAFTA for Best Actor for the role for that. He was also in the horror mystery streaming series, which I watched and my wife did, called Fortitude on Amazon Prime. Fantastic show if you can watch it on Amazon Prime. Gambon was knighted for his services to drama in 1998, and he was born in Ireland in 1940 on October the 9th. He was raised in London and originally trained as an engineer, following in the steps of his father, his footsteps. He made his theater debut in a production of Othello in Dublin. Now, I'll tell you a little bit more about Michael Gambon. Alan and I'll share our thoughts, too, when we come back.
From the mysterious streets of Diagon Alley to the magical halls of Hogwarts Castle, the world's most spellbinding journey is about to take its wildest turn yet. Prepare to face the Forbidden Forest and join Hagrid to encounter the rarest of magical creatures in the epic new addition to the wizarding world of Harry Potter. Only at Universal Orlando Resort.
Jenga, Jenga. You take a block from the bottom and you put it on top. You take a block from the middle and you put it on top. That's how you build a tower, you just don't stop. You gotta build that tower putting blocks on top. And it teeters and it totters as you build it all up. It weebles and it wobbles, but you don't give up. You take a block from the bottom and you put it on top. You take a block from the middle and you put it on top. Till someone knocks it over and that's when you stop. But you start all over putting blocks on top. Jenga from Irwin.
It's the Funzy motorcycle, and here's Funzy, each sold separately.
Hey, fun!
With thumbs up action, switch the cycle on, and it takes off. Then its automatic twist-out action sends it back. Batteries for cycle not included. He's cool.
Hey, Funzy!
Funzy motorcycle with twist-out action. Funzy figures sold separately.
Having fun every Saturday here from 10 a.m. till noon Eastern. It's BK on the air here on AM 1450 and 100.3 FM WBHF. Streaming from our website at WBHFradio.org. Check us out anytime that you want. If you don't have a signal, you can hear us that way if you want. I was talking about Michael Gambon passing away from Harry Potter, Dumbledore from Harry Potter. And believe it or not, I had not seen him. I haven't seen him in much outside of Harry Potter and a TV show that I talked about called Fortitude, which airs, actually it was Amazon Prime that aired it here in the U.S. for us to see, but I think it was a Swedish-made television series that was on Sky TV or something over there, and I still can't find season 3, so I don't know what happened. Season 3 has been out over there. It just hasn't made it over here yet, so I'd like to see that to wrap that show up. Getting back to his history and stuff, Michael Gambon, in 1963, he got his first big break with a minor role in Hamlet, the National Theatre Company's opening production under the directorship of the legendary Laurence Olivier.
Oh, wow.
In 1963. Gambon received critical acclaim for his leading performance in John Dexter's Life of Galileo. He won the Laurence Olivier Award 3 times and the Critics' Circle Theatre Awards twice. He additionally received 4 coveted British Academy of Film and Television Arts Awards for his work on television. He was decorated quite a bit before he ever showed up in America in Harry Potter.
He is a phenomenal British actor.
It's incredible. Gambon was always instantly recognizable by the deep and drawling tones of his distinctive voice. In 2015, he returned to the works of J.K. Rowling, taking a leading role in the TV adaptation of her book, The Casual Vacancy. And I'd never heard of that, so he's in that too. So I guess they made an adaptation in 2015 of that. and he was in that. And you told
Wasn't
a story.
That the book? Wait a minute. Now you're triggering a memory. I think she wrote that under a pseudonym because everybody wanted to just she just wanted to write only Harry Potter stuff.
Yeah.
She goes, well, I've got other ideas. I'm not just. Yeah. And so she wrote it under a pseudonym, and someone did some investigative work and realized it was the same publishing company, and they routed it, and they're like, it's just J.K. Rowling under a pen name. So like, all right, fine, she just admitted it. But
I guess because Stephen King did that.
Yeah, he went under Richard Bachman.
Was it something that they did to like prove to themselves that they could make it without writing on their own name, I guess?
No, ironically with Stephen King, because he would write so much, and I was a huge King fan for a long time, his publishing house said, well, we don't want to dilute your brand. And he goes, well, I've got so many book ideas, I want to put it out there.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well, one a year is more than enough. So he's like, well, then I'm going to write under a different name.
But I was wondering if any of them, that would have been part of the reason if they wanted to say, listen, I'd like to make it as another, see if I could still write and people would notice and it wasn't me.
I don't know.
Maybe that would be a proving ground for somebody doing it as well. Well, you told the story about, you heard that J.K. Rowling had seen Michael Gambon in a production of something to me off the
King
air
Lear.
earlier. She saw him in King Lear.
She saw him in King Lear, just was blown away by this performance. Just like what, and that's a meaty role. That's like,
oh, yeah.
King Lear is one of those characters that it's so amazing. And she said, I saw this guy, Michael Gambon, and she's like, if you had told me then that I would have written a character that he would embody later, I would have laughed at you. Like, there's no way a guy this good, that with those kinds of characters would ever stoop to playing one of my characters.
And she must have been at least flattered and very happy when she heard that Richard Harris was going to play. He's a legendary actor too. So I can only guess that she was very pleased with Richard Harris as well, being in her.
Well, if you read the first books, the way Richard Harris played it with more of the thin whisper was how Dumbledore was described.
Right.
That he didn't really have to raise his voice, but when he did, it was so off. You'd be like, whoa.
Right.
And
it did surprise me when Richard Harris would yell, the ones, silence. I'm like, whoa, okay.
Right. Like, whoa. Okay,
when
now,
he says silence.
Yeah. But we talked about it on my show, but we'll do it for yours as well. I so immediately took to Michael Gambon's version of Dumbledore when the story started turning more adult and more sinister, because as the kids are getting older and Voldemort's coming back into his own and trying to come back into power.
Yeah,
I'm kind of happy that they went with a little more of that deeper voice, that sense of calm but power underneath.
Right.
And when he did the scene you played, that just, you realize, who did you think you were? You're going to come arrest Dumbledore? Come on.
I know I'm nice when I need to be nice and everything, but I can be, powerful if I need to be.
There's a reason he defeated the worst wizard at one point in time, right?
Yeah, come on.
His background. I'm not talking about Voldemort, the wizard that came before him that's in the movies, the magical beasts and where to find them.
Beasts, yeah.
Or Fantastic Beasts. But he took out the previous worst wizard of all time.
Well, I know that everyone mostly know him, at least in America, for Dumbledore and Harry Potter. But if you want to check out an interesting horror thriller mystery series called Fortitude, if I describe it right, it's a show about a town called Fortitude that's set. It's either somewhere in North Greenland, somewhere near the North Pole or something. It's in a remote, very cold area where people do what they do. I guess they do ice fishing and stuff, and it's just and people live in those areas, believe it or not. But there was some sort of zombie problem with people dying, and it was remember how where they got the idea for Alien from was there was a wasp that could lay its eggs in something, or there's an insect that's lay its eggs in something, and those eggs can actually take over the insect almost like a zombie, where the eggs grow on it and feed on it and stuff, and it's just a horrific type of thing to do. They took that a step further with Fortitude about them finding a fossil of this prehistoric thing that was having an effect on this area. And what's one of the best parts of horror that you can interject into a story to make it more scary, kind of like The Shining, is set it somewhere remote where you're isolated. In The Shining, when they overlooked, they were snowed in. No one could get to them. They could barely talk to people on the radio. So if you're isolated, it's easier for things to happen to you that you can't do anything about or get away from. And that's kind of what Fortitude was about. It was just a strange show that is hard to explain. That's what pulled me toward it. And Michael Gambon is in it. And he's fantastic in the show, along with Dennis Quaid and a lot of other people that went on to be in other shows. But and I'll miss him. it's almost like you hope that, I don't want to lose anybody, and we lost Richard Harris, so he didn't make it through the Harry Potter series. But you want to, if you have an ensemble cast, like Star Trek ensemble, you have the Star Wars characters, the Harry Potter actors and characters. If they go on for a long time, like the Marvel films, you want at least hopefully everyone to stay intact through till things end, right, or whatever, and stay with it. Even creative people, I think that way about if someone has started scoring a franchise with their music, I hope they stick around to score the rest of it. Now Harry Potter, they changed composers, but they kept the John Williams theme, though. Right. Hedwig's theme was always in there throughout the entire series. Each composer would add his own stuff. But Michael Gambon, I told you that it got so used to Richard Harris, seeing Richard Harris as Dumbledore for the first two films, and Michael came in on the third film, which happens to be my favorite film of the franchise, and I'm watching it, and I'm like, oh, this new guy, oh no, he's not Richard Harris, which was great. They didn't cast anybody like Richard Harris. He was completely different. So usually you want to replace the person with someone familiar, and stay that way. But he made it his own, and now, after 3 movies, I could only think of Richard Harris as Dumbledore. Now, when I think of Dumbledore in my mind, Michael Gambon's face comes up.
What's crazy is when I go back and reread the books, it's Michael Gambon that I hear.
It's his voice.
I hear it. I see it visually. When I reread the books.
Rest in peace, Michael Gambon. He was an actor that we enjoyed very much.
Yes.
And if you like Harry Potter, you want to add to it, 770-386-1450 is our number. Call us up and talk about that or anything else you want to talk about. I do have kind of another Harry Potter story that I was going to do last week, but I forgot to do it, and I was talking to you off the air. But this is Harry Potter, so it ties in. This is from Jenna Bush at slashfilm.com. It says, one of Harry Potter's directors turned down a dream movie to direct Harry Potter instead. And when this came out, I think last week or week before last, I had no idea that this was the case. Spider-Man is one of those characters that has inspired generations of artists in multiple fields, as we know, from writers to actors to directors and more. And look at that. I'm going to take a break before I get into the story. But let's take a break because there's so much into Dumbledore there and Michael Gambon, and we should because we're a big fan of his. So there's a director that went for one movie instead of Harry Potter. He turned down one film and directed another one instead. It was either Harry Potter he was going to direct and directed Spider-Man instead, or directed Harry Potter instead of a Spider-Man film. I'll tell you who it was and have the story. You're going to love this because I did when we come back.
For some people, cola has become a taste habit they find hard to break out of. Yet if they would only pour a glassful of crisp, clean-tasting 7-Up, they will find it's remarkably easy to enjoy a taste. So light and refreshing. You know you love the taste of 7-Up. Marvelous. So why let a taste habit keep you bottled up? Don't you feel good about 7-Up?
Why do you hold your root beer that way?
Because that's how I hold a frosty mug of A&W.
But that's not a frosty mug.
Sure tastes like one.
A&W root beer's got that frosty mug taste. A&W root beer's got that frosty mug taste. A&W root beer's got that frosty mug taste.
Hey, we're back. It's BK on the air. It is gearing up. It's just, at least when we're recording this show on the air right now, it's almost October. It's the end of September. And we do a Halloween show here at WBHF every Halloween night. I don't care what night it falls on, which is really fun when it falls on Saturday because it did a couple of years ago. We did it on Saturday night, which was fantastic. Weeknight, we don't care. We don't wait for the weekend to do it. We do the night of Halloween, 9 p.m. to midnight Eastern. Every Halloween evening this next month coming up will be no different. So stay tuned. We'll continue to let you know about that as time goes by. But I was talking about the director that turned down one franchise to head another one, which has a Harry Potter Spider-Man theme to it, from slashfilm.com before we went to a break. I'll just start it over here. Spider-Man. We know the Spider-Man. This is the Tobey Maguire franchise, by the way. Spider-Man is one of those characters that has inspired generations of artists in multiple fields, from writers and actors to directors and more. Peter Parker and several of his Spider-Man counterparts has had to deal with just being a kid, while also keeping his superhero identity secret from his fans and family. Now, and I talked about this before. Stan Lee invented Spider-Man because he kind of got sick of the superheroes that were coming out of the time saying, oh, these superheroes are superheroes, but they're alter egos. They have no problems when they're alter egos. Clark Kent's a reporter. He has a posh life, and they all have these great lives as adults as their alter ego. Well, I'm gonna make a hero out of a kid who has to struggle even when he gets older to pay his own rent, to keep a job, but on top of all of that, he still has the responsibility of being a superhero and helping save people, which sometimes interferes with his life, getting paid and going to school and going to college.
Real life.
Yeah, exactly, and that's what he did with Spider-Man. Spider-Man, he's a little tortured, tries to do the right thing, serves as a figure for many, an inspirational figure for many of us. That's Spider-Man. From a 2023 vantage point, we've seen a whole lot of films about the web slinger, both animated and live action, but before 2002's Spider-Man, directed by Sam Raimi, that wasn't the case. There were several directors up for the job before Raimi got it, and one of them was Chris Columbus, the guy that directed Home Alone, The Babysitter's Club, Mrs. Doubtfire, and, of course, the first 2 Harry Potter films. Now, as a contender for the Spider-Man's director's chair, Columbus made a lot of sense. The filmmaker has a way with directing kids, and Harry Potter and Peter Parker aren't really that different. They're both young people with unexpected superpowers or circumstances trying to fit in. Both of them have people around them who get hurt because of this, and both lose parental figures. There's the familiarity between the two characters. It would have been a perfect fit, whichever project Columbus chose. Now, no shade to Sam Raimi's Spider-Man here because it's wonderful. Columbus, however, had to turn down the opportunity to direct Spider-Man despite having a lifelong love for Spidey. He spoke about the experience in a 2021 interview with ScreenRant.com to celebrate the 20th anniversary of the Harry Potter franchise. Now, Columbus has been a fan of the comic book character since he was a kid, like most of us are and were, and thank goodness Sam Raimi was too. After confirming that he did, in fact, turn down directing duties on Spider-Man, he joked, quote, "It is weird because, I'm of the firm belief that every movie ever made would be better with Spider-Man in it. There's no question. So, how good would The Godfather be if Spider-Man showed up?" Unquote. Columbus did explain why he had to turn down his dream job. Quote, "But honestly, the reason I got into the film business, the reason I got into movies as a kid was because of Marvel Comics. Because that's what I wanted to do. And Spider-Man was my hero as a kid. I really probably heard the day before I got the Spider-Man offer that I got Harry Potter. And whoever it was like, is he crazy? How could he pass up Spider-Man? And part of me felt that way because it's probably something I was waiting for my entire life to do, but I'm glad I decided to go with Potter. I'm pretty happy about that." So there you go. Chris Columbus came to a crossroads. Christopher Columbus did Discovering America too, but this is Chris Columbus.
Right.
He came to a crossroads in his career and had to decide between 2 characters, one that hadn't really been established in as much yet. Successful book series, yes, Harry Potter. But the other one was Spider-Man. And I agree with who wrote the article. He would have been very suited to direct Spider-Man as well and probably would have done a good job too. And I'm going to go on the flip side and say if Raimi had done the first Harry Potter film, I think it would have been successful too because the story, the books were successful. I think with 2, you might have had a little different take on it with another director, but I think they still would have succeeded because I hate these Monday morning quarterbacks that go, oh, if so-and-so had directed the film, it never would have went anywhere. Oh, if Peter Cushing had played Obi-Wan Kenobi and Alec Guinness had played Grand Moff Tarkin, Star Wars would have been ruined. No, you would have just known them to play the characters. I think the movie still would have gone on because they were 2 great actors. So that would definitely be a little different movies if they had flip-flopped on those.
I do think if they had flip-flopped, first of all, I think Chris Columbus was better with younger actors because Tobey Maguire wasn't exactly a kid.
Peter's like a late teen.
Well,
yeah.
and Tobey Maguire was playing young. He was a much older actor.
Yeah, of course he was.
Whereas they had actual 12-year-olds playing the 12-year-olds in the movie.
Yeah, in Harry Potter.
If Sam Raimi directed Harry Potter, I think it would have been dark from the beginning.
It would have been a little darker, yeah.
More dark than it already was.
True, yeah.
And I think it would have been probably even more lighthearted with the Spider-Man had Chris Columbus done it.
Very true.
I think when you look at it, I think they fell in the right places.
They did.
You needed somebody to handle Harry Potter with maybe a lighter hand.
Right.
And you needed Spider-Man to be pushed a little bit heavier to be more realistic.
Right.
Which is why I think they were so successful.
Oh, yeah, it worked out. I'm glad. Don't get me wrong. I'm glad at how it worked out. Mm-hmm. I just like to play. Oh, what if they directed
I agree
each
with
one?
you. Both of them would have still done it, but they wouldn't have been the same.
It would have been different movies. Yeah, it really would have. Now, not unrecognizable from the books. I don't think they would have changed them so much because they both respected the source material. They both liked what they were doing.
Yeah.
And I think it's great that Chris Columbus loved Spider-Man and grew up reading Spider-Man, and Sam Raimi did too. And I'm like, there's two directors that loved that franchise and that character. You want to know what's
crazy? Chris Columbus must lead some kind of a charmed life because when you told me that, because you set the premise, and I didn't know what you were talking about, but I said the first thought that came to mind was when Chris Columbus was offered the opportunity to direct a John Hughes script. John Hughes, a buddy of his, said, I think you'd be great for this. We're going to do a Christmas Vacation. Chris Columbus goes, this is great. I get to do a National Lampoon. We get to do a funny movie. It's around Christmas.
Right.
He said, a week into it, I can't deal with Chevy Chase.
Right.
He comes back to John and goes, I hate to do this.
Yeah.
You need to find someone else. Is there anything else? And he's like, well, I'm tinkering with this idea about this kid who got left home at Christmas as well, got left home alone.
Right. Well, I guess who directed Vacation? That was that Harold Ramis?
I don't
or
know.
Ivan Reitman. It was one of those two guys. Whoever did direct Vacation could deal with Chevy Chase, I guess and went ahead and did it. So, yeah.
But once again, I don't know that Home Alone would have been the charming blockbuster it was if it weren't for somebody like Spielberg could have done it because he's used to dealing with kids.
Yeah.
I always said I think Chris Columbus is like the junior Spielberg. He just knows how to get performances out of kids.
We didn't get to do this story last week, and I was telling you about it in the studio. And I said, when I presented it to you, I didn't tell you who the director was and what he was going to do. And again, you did. You're right. Out of the blue, you said, well, Chris Columbus, blah, 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 said that and you just told the whole story to me that you did right then. And I just went ahead and broke it. I'm like, that's who it is. It's Chris Columbus that had made the choice between Spider-Man and Harry Potter. I said, just through the process of osmosis or something, you guessed who it was without me telling you who it was. And that was just so weird. We have those sometimes.
Yeah.
Those are called little temporary mind melds.
Every now and then it makes it look like we're smart.
That we...
Every now and then.
Well, I don't know. At least thinking like the other, which might not be good.
Wait a minute. Yeah, I didn't think of it that way.
Let's go down that path and not take care of that. So, but I do have don't forget, we didn't forget to flash the audience. We just had a lot of content today, and I pushed it back a little bit. I will flash the audience after the top of the hour. We'll do the flash the audience, and then we'll push the On This Day in History down a little bit more because we got a lot to talk about today. There's something else I want to talk about today is legendary actor and performer and voiceover artist William Conrad. Does the name ring a bell? I know you've heard of him.
Cannon.
He played the portly Cannon on CBS Quinn Martin production TV series Detective Cannon. But he's done so much more, and if you're familiar with Hollywood, you like this show, and you like looking at things and the careers of people, you know that he did a whole lot more than that before Cannon in the 70s, and he did a lot more even after that up into the 80s.
Have a show, Jake and the Fat Man?
Jake and the Fat Man, he certainly did in the 80s. Well, it was his birthday this week, and it didn't fall on today, but it was last week, and I want to get into his career, what he did, and some facts that you may or may not know about him. And he did the voice of a character on television, which we talked about. Pat McCormick talked about Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids, which is a Filmation-produced television show on Saturday mornings. Another Filmation cartoon that he provided the voice of on, and I'll tell you about this. I won't tell you what it was, but I'll tell you about it when we get to the segment later. That he did the voice for this animated legendary character. He did the voice of this character, and it was a decision between him and his manager to say, don't put your name on the voice, use a pseudonym, and he did. For the fact that I think his manager or someone said, well, you don't want to be associated with cartoons and stuff. I mean, your career is going in another direction, so just do your. And I'm like, I don't know why they would tell him that because William Conrad worked in radio back in the 50s. So I'm like, maybe that was because radio was much more respected back then. It was the medium for drama back in the day. Before television, you only had radio to listen to for drama, comedy, and everything. So I don't know why they made that decision. And you may or may not be surprised when I get to the facts about William Conrad and tell you what that cartoon was that he did
I'd be curious to see what it is if I know who it is.
I don't have enough time to get deeply into anything, but I'll tell you what's coming up. DC Comics announced a 35th anniversary concert tour for a superhero movie that has a certain sound of music to it that we talked about earlier. That they will have a tour playing the music from this film and touring, and it will come to Atlanta and maybe a city near you. I have the schedule for that coming up. And today is the anniversary of the Flintstones, the broadcast premiere of the Flintstones. And I'll have a couple of stories about the Flintstones, one of facts and figures, how it came into being, and a story about Alan Reed. Ever wonder how he came up with Yabba Dabba Doo? I'm going to tell you how he came up with that saying.
Okay.
I'm like, where did that come from? Things come from somewhere all the time. Along with talking about William Conrad.
It's not from Little Blue Eyes, Doobie Doobie Doo?
No, it's not. You believe it or not, it's not.
Doobie Doobie
It has
Doo.
nothing to do with that. So,
Yabba Dabba Doo.
are you going to sing?
No. Yeah.
You're right. You weren't singing.
I don't know what that
That's
was.
for sure. But it is. It's BK on the Air. We're having a fun time here at WBHF every Saturday. And you can find me online, by the way, on Twitter, Instagram, X, Instagram, and Facebook. I've got presence on all three of those social media platforms, and we'll be back after this.
We'll return after these messages.
Dull streets are gonna clear up, put on a Windex shine. Wipe off the dirt and cheer up, put on a Windex shine. Spray sunshine all over the place.
Only Windex has ammonia D, so nothing shines like it. Makes all kinds of shiny surfaces sparkle like glass without streaking.
Spray sunshine, it makes you feel fine when you put on a Windex shine.
If only you could hear what people think. Like to be her pen pal.
Nice. Too bad he's scratching his head. Could be dandruff. Sure get a lot of junk mail.
That little itch could be showing people you have dandruff. But Head & Shoulders handles that itch, so all it shows is hair that's soft and shiny clean.
Well, 3A? Oh, 3B.
Try Head & Shoulders shampoo and show off your hair, not the itch of dandruff, in regular and conditioning formulas.
Stand by to receive our transmission.
Hey, we're back. It's BK on the Air, back for the last half of the show. Boy, I wish it were longer, but it's not. Maybe I can make it, work on that for the future. Maybe I can get a chance to go for about 3 or 4 hours every day. That would be nice. But I don't know. I like doing what I like getting what I can get. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
We didn't do On This Day in History, so I would like to get to it right now. Today is September the 30th. Let's do a little On This Day in History. 1936. Let's go back to 1936, a year before my dad was born. Pinewood Studios opens in Buckinghamshire, England, on this day in 1936.
You said 36. How funny, because that is 4 years before the birth of Michael Gambon.
Yeah, and how legendary is that studio? Pinewood went on to be. I mean, even had a presence here for a little while, just south of Atlanta here in Georgia. But they chunked out like the Bond films for a while. They did, and then they eventually made, I think, the 007 stage. They built their own stage. But Pinewood, I think Pinewood was used for some of the Star Wars films.
Star Wars, yeah.
And I mean, there's just so much. Kroll, some of these big sci-fi fantasy films, you needed something big for your movie. You went to Pinewood Studios in England was the time that you did it. But now you've got a lot of choices. As Archie Bunker would say, you got a lot of choices now when it comes to filming your movie. You can come here to Georgia and film your movie because we have movie studios, not just one, we have 3 or 4, you know, and just in the Atlanta metro area in North Georgia that you can film it. Happy birthday to Pinewood Studios. 1950, on this day in history, September the 30th, radio's Grand Ole Opry is broadcast for the first time. We always like mentioning radio stuff on here because we are a radio station. And there was a television series that premiered on this day in history, and people, we did a list not too long ago, or there was a list done on Twitter, on X, not too long ago, about what was your favorite top 5 Westerns TV series of all times. And growing up, I wasn't that big of a Western fan. I did watch a couple of them with my dad, but my favorite Western celebrates its premiere on ABC TV today in history. The Rifleman, starring Chuck Connors.
Chuck Connors.
I think if I had to pick my favorite Western of all time, Chuck Connors as the Rifleman is my favorite. Gunsmoke probably my second favorite Western, maybe first if they battle for number 1 position. But Rifleman, interesting show. Only 30 minutes long back in the day, not an hour. Most Westerns were an hour after that. But the people who wrote The Rifleman knew how to put everything in a succinct story with a beginning, a middle, and an end in 30 minutes' time, and it was a drama.
Now, would mine count the Wild Wild West?
I think yours would count as a Western or a sci-fi series because they say it was a science fiction Western.
I loved the Wild Wild West.
And you want to hear something funny? I never watched it. I have never seen the television show. I may have seen 1 or 2 episodes sporadically here and there, and I've been told I'd love it, but I've just never had taken the time to sit down and watch it.
Oh my gosh, that was so much fun to watch.
I was familiar with him from Baba Black Sheep.
Robert Conrad.
Yeah,
different Conrad.
And in 1960, we got 2 anniversaries today. And actually, we can celebrate. We can celebrate this show's anniversary for letting it sing "Happy Anniversary" to itself.
Oh, happy anniversary, happy anniversary, happy anniversary, happy anniversary.
Fred, you remembered.
How could I ever forget the happiest day of my life?
Oh, happy anniversary, happy anniversary, happy anniversary, happy anniversary.
Well, thanks, fellas. It sure was.
She and happy, they're both as happy as can be, celebrating merrily their happy anniversary.
And I didn't forget you, darling. Happy anniversary.
A tie with spots on it already. Just what I always needed.
Oh, Fred.
Oh, happy anniversary, happy anniversary, happy anniversary, happy anniversary.
That's right. Happy anniversary to the Flintstones as they sing Happy Anniversary there on the episode. On ABC, 1960 is when the Flintstone premieres from Hanna-Barbera. Another premiere, 1965 on ITV in England, a show which is in syndication over here in America. It did finally make it over here, and I used to watch it in the morning before I went to school. The Thunderbirds premiered on this day in 1965 on ITV, the weird puppet show with the little puppets being part of an international rescue with their little ships where they would rescue people from danger and stuff.
If we never had that, we wouldn't have gotten Team America.
You never would have gotten. You're exactly right. And Jerry Anderson produced a lot of shows like that with puppets. Thunderbird, Stingray, Joe 90, so many shows. Captain Scarlet came out. He loved playing with the puppets. And as a kid, I liked them because they were basically, oh, look, my action figures are alive. This is what they would look like if they were going on adventures. And they didn't bother to hide the strings or anything because they couldn't, but me and my mind knew that they were alive and they were doing those things.
Some of the miniature work was awesome.
Oh, the little ships and stuff and the buildings that they were doing, the vehicles, all miniature, and it was fantastic. That guy, Derek Meddings, we talked about him last week, going on to do the specs for James Bond. A lot of the earlier 70s James Bond films and the TV series UFO. He was a miniature genius. I don't mean he was small. I meant he was a genius in
miniatures.
Yeah. 1968, on this day in history, September the 30th, the first Boeing 747 jumbo jet rolls out on this day in 68. You know, I've never ridden on a 747.
I've never been in that big
They're
one.
huge. I've never been on that jet. I've been in a 767. I've been in a what was the other one?
737.
737. Yeah, with Delta, but I've never been on a 747, and they're still a big jet. In 1983, a movie was released on his day in history 40 years ago, and it was directed by a special effects artist named Douglas Trumbull, who usually did special effects for films, but he turned director with this movie. Natalie Wood's last movie, Brainstorm, was released on this day in history. It's 40 years old. She died, Natalie Wood, before the filming of the movie was fully completed, so the ending had to be created from scenes shot earlier, and her sister, Lana Wood, filled in for Natalie in some shots and efforts to help finish the film. Douglas Trumbull shot and get this, you remember Brainstorm, right? I don't remember a director ever doing this before or doing it after. He shot the virtual reality scenes in the film because, as you know, if you've seen the film, when they put on the Brainstorm device, it was basically it was virtual reality back in the '83, which when it was only talked about back then, and you could experience things. Well, when you went into someone's mind, seeing what they saw in that movie, he shot the virtual reality sequences in 24 frames per second, Super Panavision at Super Panavision 70 with an aspect ratio of 2 to 2 to 1. The rest of the film was shot in conventional 35 millimeter with an aspect ratio of 1 to 7 to 1. So that meant the whole screen changed when they went into the virtual reality scenes in the theater. The only way you can tell it in watching it on video or on streaming is in the virtual reality scenes. It changes to super widescreen. is what it does, and it switches back to filling up a little more of the top part of your TV screen when you go back to regular. Jerry Springer's trashy talk show debuts on this day in history in 1991, and another movie premiere in 1994. My favorite Tim Burton film premiered on this day in 1994. Ed Wood premieres on this day in 94. We'll have birthdays and what national day it is when we come back. It's BK on the air.
Brainstorm is a landmark motion picture, says Us Magazine. Its fireworks explode across the screen, adds the New York Times. And Entertainment Tonight says, don't miss this dazzling sight and sound experience. A new dimension in motion picture entertainment. Rated PG.
Now playing at a theater near you, check newspaper for listing.
Superman. Boy, that sun's hot. I got a headache. I better go home and take some medicine for it.
Oh?
Sure, I got a lot of stuff in the medicine cabinet.
Taking pills is dangerous if you don't know what you're doing.
Dangerous?
The wrong pill or too many pills can make you sick. Remember, kids shouldn't take any medicine unless it's given to them by a doctor or their parents.
I remember Superman.
When it comes to shows about movies and comic books, heroes and crazy news, I tune into BK on the air from 10 to noon Saturdays.
Oh, Fred.
Yeah, what is it, Wilma?
This bowl he gave me is no good. It's full of holes.
Full of holes? Well, those holes are supposed to be in it. You put your fingers in them, you
Fred Flintstone.
You dropped that ball on my foot, you
Fred, I won't have you calling me names.
I didn't mean anything, Wilma. It's just that when a guy's out with his buddy, he might call him names in fun.
That's the buddy system.
Yeah. Hey, some of the I used to call Barney.
Okay, I get the idea. You were going to teach me to bowl. Okay, that's... Don't get mad.
So a little not safe for air Flintstones there, since it is the Flintstones anniversary. It's amazing that they could take a show and actually put little bleeps in it where they're actually not saying anything bad at all, but just putting the beeps in over the regular words they said.
Makes you think.
How much your mind works, how the mind works. That's what this whole show's about, how the mind can work.
Apparently, we all have a very dirty mind.
Or not work. Or one or the other. How much the mind cannot be. How much the mind can be inactive and still be productive one way or the other. Yeah, we're celebrating the Flintstones anniversary today. Thought I'd sneak that in there. 770-386-1450 is our number. Someone's on the line right now, standing by. It's BK on the air. Hello.
Yeah, I have a bone to pick with both of y'all.
Oh, it's Eric. Hey, how you doing? Wonderfully happy, Eric.
You, mister, I ain't never seen the Wild Wild West.
I didn't say I never seen it. I said I've only seen one or two sporadic episodes of it, but not a lot. No.
Give it back. Give it back.
Give what back?
Give your geek card back. You don't deserve it.
I know. I'll admit it. I should have seen that show. I don't watch Lost in Space either. There's some shows I didn't get to watch, and I need to see Wild Wild West. A lot of people told me I need to watch it, but I have not seen it. I'm sorry. I apologize.
Don't let the movie influence you.
Oh, the movie's terrible.
Yes.
Best thing about the movie is Kenneth Branagh.
No, the movie, no. Don't go to the movie, just no.
Yeah, it's terrible. It was terrible. It's flop, too. Yeah. But
I don't talk about that.
But I will get around to watching the Wild Wild West one day. I really need to see it.
Yes, Alan.
Yes. Yes, sir.
You don't know who William Conrad did the voice for?
Well,
hold on. Let me stop you right there. Now, I haven't done the story on William Conrad yet, so don't spoil it. Okay. All right.
Alan.
Mm-hmm.
You need to go re-examine your life.
Wow, we're both in trouble
Wait a minute.
today. I'm so sorry.
So here's the thing, Eric. When I was a kid, I never thought about the people who did voiceover work.
Okay, what years? But Barry has told this story in some way, shape, or form for years.
Okay.
And you've been on the show for how long?
Well, do you really think I pay attention?
Well, yeah,
we're just having
you better
fun.
say back, but still.
You know, that's why the show is still fresh to me, because it's like it's the first time I've ever heard it.
That's nice. That's a good feeling. I like that. That makes me happy.
Eric, I will tell you, I was on, we did a special show with Pat McCormack and BK about voiceovers and voiceover actors, some of the best people. And I had to go do some research because I literally, as a kid, I never associated that one person could do multiple voices, so I never paid attention to who did the characters.
Yeah, and it was.
That's true.
Yeah.
You find this out, when you find this out again.
It was, and it was
the story again.
And it was fun for me growing up because I delved into that, and I don't know why I got to where I would read credits at the end of shows because I was bored, I guess, and didn't have much else to do anyway. And I watched all those things. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we all do things as we get older.
Well, yes. Plus, forget things is one of them. Is many of them. But thanks for calling in and telling me and setting me straight about the Wild Wild West. I will watch it eventually. I promise. I'll watch
Eric,
it.
before I let you go, how's Bob Newhart?
Bob Hope.
Bob Newhart.
Or was it Bob Newhart?
Was
it one
Bob
of Bob's?
Newhart.
Okay.
How's Bob Newhart? Is he still alive? Eric?
No.
Eric? Hey, listen, you throw shade. You better be ready to get some
forget
back.
Stuff. It's okay. Hey, I'll talk to you later. I'll go watch Wild Wild West.
He's getting older too.
I promise. Bye. Bye. That's true. So.
Love you, man.
But I do need to watch that show. I promise. I've heard. Even my dad
actually
told
would
me.
love to go back and stream it all.
My dad
I
told me.
loved every single episode. Loved how they put it together. Loved the cutscenes. Loved how when they would go to the commercial break, how it would fill in into this like mosaic picture frame. Everything about that show, it was like James Bond set in the Wild West.
Right, and that's what my dad told me. He goes, of all people to watch a show, you haven't seen Wild Wild West. You need to see that. So I'll promise I need to see it. Birthdays today. Today is September the 30th. Birthdays. Johnny Mathis, American pop vocalist. It's his birthday today. You remember Johnny Mathis?
Yes.
Chances are you wear a silly grin.
He's got one of those voices for the Christmas album. His
That's right.
Legendary.
He does. Today is Jack Wilde's birthday, British actor. He was in Oliver, H.R. Puffin stuff. He was that child actor back in the day growing up. He died in 2006, though. And today's Johnny Bravo's birthday today. Johnny Bravo, Barry Williams from the Brady Bunch. American actor. Not the cartoon Johnny Bravo, but Barry started that character on the Brady Bunch, or started the name of that name on the Brady Bunch as his alter ego singer. Today is actor Eric Stoltz's birthday today. The Fly 2, Anaconda, Pulp Fiction, Mask with Cher, which was a fantastic movie that he had to act actually through the makeup and did a fantastic job doing it, which is it's a fantastic movie.
And actually, you can see pieces of him in Back to the Future.
I was just about to get to that.
Oh,
actually, you can see pieces of him in Back to the Future, especially the back of his head, standing in every now and then, because he was originally cast as Marty McFly. But for some reason, his comedic timing just wasn't doing it for Robert Zemeckis, and there was nothing wrong. They didn't fight or anything. They just decided to change.
If it's not working, it's not working.
Yeah, and he's already proved himself as a fantastic actor, both of them. It just sometimes you don't get the right thing.
Michael J. Fox is happy he got the role. I think he made a few more dollars.
Today
in his
is
career.
also Monica Bellucci's birthday today, Italian actress from
not a bad-looking lady.
Bram Stoker's Dracula, Spectre, James Bond, and she's also been cast in Beetlejuice too. I think as Beetlejuice.
Well, don't forget,
she
was also in The Passion of the Christ.
Passion of the Christ. That's right. She's, for her age, and I don't mean anything by saying for her age because she's in her 50s. She's still
Matrix
a beautiful
2.
woman. Matrix 2. That's right. The one that I didn't like that much. Matrix 2.
She is a gorgeous human being.
She is very, very gorgeous. I think she has a painting of herself in the attic somewhere. Hope they don't discover it. 770-386-1450. You can call just like Eric did. Someone else is calling now. Hey, it's BK on there. Hello.
What's happening?
Just sitting here messing around on the radio.
All right, you're talking about Wild Wild West. Don't be so quick to plug them because he's on opposite you on MeTV Saturday at 10 a.m.
Oh, I already know that people are watching them instead of listening to me.
You were talking about Pinewood Studios and This Day in History.
Yes.
And Superman the movie was filmed there, as was Space 1999, right before Superman the movie. And what hurts my heart is to know that the Command Center set became the Daily Planet set, which is a dated set.
Yes. Didn't the ballroom in The Shining become the Dagobah set for Empire Strikes Back as well? I think that was part of the Pinewood Studio.
You're probably
yeah,
right. That's a
and
cool fact.
Caught fire at one point, and they had to put it out. But yeah, that just shows you how. Because when you watch The Shining and you see him walk into the ballroom, It's massive. It's huge. It has you don't usually have to build a ceiling and stuff maybe for TV movie productions and show a ceiling, but the ballroom, I think it's got a ceiling in The Shining. It's such a huge room that you have to have a big soundstage to build stuff like that. And the Dagobah set was cavernous and did have a couple of caves. By the way, cavernous, it's got caves. But yes, that's right. I was in North Georgia as well this last week. We were up at Lake Notley in Blairsville, and another cool movie tie-in for North Georgia is the movie Grizzly from 1976 was filmed in North Georgia.
Love it, Christopher George.
Yeah, the bear version of Jaws. Jaws on land.
Clayton, Georgia. Hey, real quick, trivia question. You're really quick and good, so you'll probably know this. What set from Space 1999 made it into the Superman the movie shoot in the Superman 2 portion, which Donner shot at the same time as Superman the movie?
I don't know what set made it in there, but I know a lot of the sound effects in Moonraker and some of the things made it into Moonraker from Space 1999, but yeah.
Well, the answer is the moon. When
the moon.
villains attacked the NASA astronaut.
Right. Well, I know they didn't use the moon probably for Superman 4 because it looked horrible. They would have used that one too. So, yeah, well, that's cool. Yeah. Thanks, Chance. I appreciate it. Yeah, a lot of things are really reused. When I watched them on the space station in Moonraker, I'm like, oh, those little buttons back there and those little things they're using are all from Space 1999, and even some of the sound effects. So, you've been watching things too long when you notice things like that, and I did. And I was told many times by my parents, you're watching things over and over way too many times. You need to concentrate more on your schoolwork. I'm like, why, Mom? I want a career in radio. Let's get back to what national day it is today. Today is look at this. Today is International Podcast Day. Is today. We know of a few podcasts, don't we? We know of a few. You can listen to this show. I turn it into a podcast as soon as I'm a week or two behind, but you can still listen to the podcast of BK on the Air on YouTube, Spotify, and SoundCloud if you want to get out there and listen to it. And today is National Chewing Gum Day today, so go out and get you a pack and chew some chewing gums. I don't chew gum as much anymore now as an adult. I used to, but every now and then I might, but I'm like, I'm not that big into it. But I used to be, the two that I used to chew all the time and look forward to as a kid, no, it wasn't the ones with the cards, the Topps cards. That wasn't gum. I don't know what that was. It was like a piece of cardboard painted pink because it would pretty much, chewing gum from collector cards. I chewed it about 5, and it's gone. Mm-hmm. The taste is gone. Bubble Yum and Bubblicious were my two bubble gums of choice. I
did like those a lot. I also did a lot of Big League Chew.
Big League Chew. I loved Big Red too because Big Red was cinnamon.
When I got older and I was interested in going on maybe excursions with opposite sex, Big Red was always a good one. Yes.
Excursions. Yes, that was a really good one. Dentine as well was cinnamon.
Yeah, I like the cinnamon. Big Red better.
Big Red was a bigger piece. So yeah, today is National Ghost Hunting Day. If you're into that sort of thing, and we talked about the Thunderbirds it's their premiere of the Thunderbirds. Jerry Anderson. It's Thunderbirds Day. Thunderbirds are go. Scared my sister to death when I watched those in the morning. It's BK on the Air.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Kellogg's Sugar Smacks are go. Plenty of Thunderbirds energy fast when you need it. The Thunderbirds team all have Sugar Smacks for breakfast.
You'll love these honey sweet puffs of wheat.
Don't be left behind. Kellogg's Sugar Smacks are go. F-A-B.
Stand by for action. Anything can happen in the next half hour.
You're listening to BK on the Air. This is Mrs. BK, and I'm not listening now because, well, I sleep in every Saturday morning. But I'll catch him later on the BK Escape Pod podcast. Now, back to that man of mine, BK on the Air. Mwah.
Thank you, baby. Yeah, we had a great time on our vacation this week. She really needed to unwind, and I'm glad that she did. Being a school teacher, she was pulling her hair out. Now she's got a little bit of hair left, but that's fine. From MeTV, I have this story. The Flintstones, since we are celebrating their anniversary of the Flintstones, they say the Flintstones was a Jurassic-sized risk, the article says. In our current geologic period, the Flintstones is rightly upheld as one of the most important animated series of all time. I'll go along with that. Its place in history has long been cemented. After all, it was the first animated series to be nominated for the Primetime Emmy Award for Outstanding Comedy Series. The show spun off an additional 7 animated programs, 2 live-action feature films, and featured as a theme land in the Warner Brothers Park in Abu Dhabi. Clearly, the Flintstones had a wide-ranging influence that is still felt today, but that status as a cartoon institution hasn't been forever the case for the Flintstones. It's hard to believe that, as it may be, the show wasn't always a sure thing. There was a time when the Flintstones seemed like a massive gamble. Now, no, we don't mean the slot machines in Viva Rock Vegas. It might seem like ancient history, but that modern Stone Age family was a real risk for Hanna-Barbera in the not-too-distant past. By 1960, the team of William Hanna and Joseph Barbera were already wildly successful. The madcap adventures of their Tom and Jerry cartoons earned the pair a total of 7 Academy Awards in the decade between 1943 and 53. Think about that. Their Tom and Jerry cartoons won them Academy Awards, believe it or not, because they were shown in the theater. When producer Fred Quimby retired as head of MGM Animation Studios, Hanna and Barbera fit the opening naturally until the studio was closed in mid-1957. Now, undeterred, the duo founded HB Enterprises, continuing their string of successes with Rough and Ready and the Huckleberry Hound Show. However, it wasn't until HB Enterprises reincorporated as Hanna-Barbera Productions that the team would see its biggest wins to date. In 1960, Joe Barbera flew to New York to pitch a half-hour comedy family sitcom. Typically, when a studio readies a new show for a network sale, the studio produces a first episode or, a pilot. Because of the inherent cost of producing such a pilot and the potential for that pilot to flop, Barbera was instead armed with only a few sketches and the uncanny ability to act out the traits and the personality of the show's characters. That show became the Flintstones, but only after the careful consideration of network executives at ABC Television. A 1960 article in The State describes the decision as involving many people and organizations, not only the network, but the sponsors and their advertising agencies, for whom a move means a gamble of hundreds of thousands of dollars. Well, that's 1960 money. That would be hundreds of millions of dollars now, I guess, or millions. ABC took a risk and aired the program in the evening time. People forget.
Primetime cartoon.
People forget the Flintstones were on at night. Simpsons wasn't the first one. But what about the show? What about it made it ready for prime time, though? The key was careful counterbalancing of cost and quality. Barbera explained it this way, quote, "You have to know when to cut and when not to cut. It's that simple. Some people think they can save money and still come up with something good by taking cutouts and moving them around like a fixed background. Limited animation like that is a mistake," he says. So, despite the risk, did Hanna-Barbera produce a show that stood the test of time? Yes, they yabba dabba did. That's what it says. And I'll tell you about Yabba Dabba Doo here in just a minute. So remember, you can watch the Flintstones on MeTV. That's Sundays at 10 a.m. on MeTV is where you can see it. And I have one more story here to tie in with that, because it's the Flintstones. Yabba Dabba Doo. How did actor Alan Reed come up with that saying, yabba dabba doo? You don't even have to watch the Flintstones or be a fan. You say that to somebody, they usually know what that's from. Now, just as iconic as the name or an outfit or a character's catchphrase is iconic as in its own right as any of those things. If a character says a catchphrase, you can get it. What was Bart's big one? Cowabunga, dude.
Yeah, don't have a cow, man.
Don't have a cow. Eat my shorts.
Yeah, eat my shorts.
It's what sticks in a viewer's mind after the television series or after the show's even turned off, or even after the show's left the airwaves. Such is the case for Fred Flintstone and his famous Yabba Dabba Doo. If you yell that into a crowded supermarket, sure, they'll probably be a little frightened of you, but they'll also definitely know that you're quoting Fred Flintstone. Well, it might surprise you to know that famous catchphrase was actually an improvisational choice by none other than the actor providing his voice, Alan Reed. In an interview with Tinseltown Talks for the Fayette Tribune, Alan Reed's son, Alan Reed Jr., recounted the story. He said, it called for Fred to yell, Yahoo! But Dad felt it didn't have enough exuberance, and that's what was needed. He continued, so he spontaneously came up with which was during a recording session, and Joe Barbera liked it. Mm-hmm. So it just started out as Yahoo. So there you go. That's how Yabba Dabba Doo came to being. It was just from a simple word in the script that set him to yell, Fred yells Yahoo. So there you go. Sometimes it's very simple.
You know, had he said Yahoo, that would have been too much like a Western or something. It would have.
Yeah,
but by creating this kind of nonsense word, it worked.
They could have.
And you're right, Yabba Dabba Doo. Anybody who's, you just know it. It's the catchphrase.
That's one of the catchphrases.
Yeah.
I mean, it's one of those things where you yell and you know what they're saying. Shazam! You just come up with these sayings that you know what they are. So there's a little more history for you. Now, I'm going to get into this next one here because we are running out of time, and I wanted to get to these things before it got too late. I had a quiz for you, but we may have to bump that off to next week. But it's not a timely one, so we can do it at any time. William Conrad had a birthday this week. September, I think the 27th was William Conrad's birthday. An actor, a voiceover guy. You talk about voiceovers earlier. This guy was a great voiceover artist, and his voice is everywhere. You just may not know everywhere that it is. But he was an interesting man. This is from MeTV.com. Quote, I have no desire to produce or direct again, and frankly, I'm not sure I have a desire to do anything else, unquote, from William Conrad back in the day. Those are his words from a 1973 interview with the Ventura County Star. The actor was then in the middle of a production with his detective series Cannon, a Quinn Martin production on CBS, one of the most successful Quinn Martin shows that was on, I think. In fact, I think Cannon spun off Barnaby Jones. I think Barnaby Jones, Buddy Abson, was on an episode of Cannon and then got his own show. Might be vice versa, but I'm not sure. But I think Barnaby Jones came from Cannon. While the demands of a leading series are certainly taxing, the article overlooks just how much time and effort William Conrad put into his career to get that far in the first place. After all, Cannon came as the culmination of more than 3 decades of hard work by William Conrad. Not related to Robert Conrad, by the way, I don't think. You brought him up earlier with Wild Wild West. Conrad didn't just show up on the set. He put a life into building the resume that would land him the job. Quote, I'm nearly 53 years old. This is him in 1973. I'm nearly 53 years old. I've been working since I was 16. And after all those years driving myself, I've just reached the point where my motor is stuck in low gear, said Conrad. He was, at that point, a veteran of radio, film, and television. It was his deep, heavy-sounding voice that first characterized Gunsmoke's Marshal Matt Dillon, as Conrad was the mouthpiece for the hero in the CBS radio program, who went on to be James Arness, played him in the show. It wasn't just Gunsmoke that benefited from Conrad's warm yet authoritative voice in his 50-plus years prior to Cannon. William Conrad was the narrator 15 times. So by the time Cannon reached audiences' television sets, Conrad had been in demand for a long time. His voice was everywhere. Quote, after Cannon goes off the air, I'd like to discover what it means to just go off and do nothing else in my life, unquote, said Conrad. He's very laid back after all that success. He was told around the same time that Cannon's sizable audience could carry the series for many, many years. CBS informed Conrad that the series could very well continue as long as he chose to remain the star. Wouldn't you like to be told that? Mm-hmm. Wouldn't that be the most spectacular news you could be given? You want to play this character, Alan? Mm-hmm. Well, you play him as long as you want because it'll just go on. It's going to be great. That was a tricky situation, it says, though, for an actor who wanted to just stay still and not do much at all. Gunsmoke was, at the time, the gold standard for a long-lasting television series, but Conrad had very little interest in staying aboard Cannon, the TV show, for quite that long. Quote, in 17 years, I'd be crawling after the bad guys instead of chasing them if I stayed on the show. I wouldn't be chasing them, I'd be crawling. The rule of thumb in this business is supposed to be that after 5 years of the series, a lead is financially independent for life. I hope so, or back in the day it was. Because we're going into our 3rd season at that time, which means I'll only have to work for 2 or 3 more years before the windfall should be mine, unquote. There you go, a little insight to William Conrad's attitude about how you just didn't want to do anything after a while. Watch Cannon on MeTV weeknights at 3 in the morning. That's when they play it. They also told him to never lose weight because he wouldn't look right as Cannon anymore. That's a problem to have. It's BK on the air.
I live to eat, and eat to live, with everything seasoned perfectly. Herbs, spices, and no salt. Aha! New seasoned no salt. It's full of great tastes, like paprika, celery, chili pepper, and the salt alternative that flavors like salt. I shake seasoned no salt, toss with it, stew with it. Live to eat and eat to live. New seasoned and regular no salt. Ah, the famous Bonanza salad bar. Hey, this really inspires me. First, a bed of crisp, fresh lettuce, luscious, ripe tomato, a ring or 2 of raw onion, a soupçon of crouton. Now, which salad dressing?
Italian.
Ah, French.
Bonanza doesn't charge you for salad with your meal.
Oh, may I?
Even the second time around. Because at Bonanza, we want you to come back.
It's BK on the air here. We're back. Final segment of the program. Can't believe how time goes by. I want to continue talking about William Conrad because he had a fascinating career. And some of the projects that he was the narrator or the voice of, you may or may not know, but I'm going to run through them right quick. Alan, did you watch Rocky and Bullwinkle, the cartoon?
I did.
Better known as the Rocky and Bullwinkle Show, lovingly spoofed as the old film serials of cinemas in the early days. There was a dastardly villain tying damsels to the railroad tracks, all that stuff. Each episode ended with a cliffhanger over which actor William Conrad would announce 2 potential titles. Something along the lines of, "Be with us next time for Avalanche is Better Than None," or "Snow's Your Old Man." He was the one that provided the narration for Rocky and Bullwinkle. That was William Conrad. The Fugitive, the Quinn Martin Show from 1963 to 67. A train speeds through the night. Name, Richard Kimball. Profession, doctor of medicine. Destination, death row. William Conrad declares as Kimball gazes at his reflection in the window. That's William Conrad's voice narrating the opening of every episode of The Fugitive. He helped to set the tone as much as the poetry of the opening of the show. That was him. Do you remember the Keep America Beautiful public service announcement from 1971, which had the Native American Indian in the canoe, and he turns around and there's a tear in his eye when he says, well, there's a narration, the narration of that commercial, which goes, some people have a deep, abiding respect for the natural beauty that was once this country, and some people don't. That's William Conrad in that commercial. Iconic commercial. Mm-hmm. It just made me sad as a kid to see that happen. It was real. What else did he do? A lot more. 1977, The Making of Star Wars. After the unprecedented blockbuster of Star Wars, there was loads of specials to continue mining its success. On September 16, 1977, mere months after the original theatrical release, ABC aired a behind-the-scenes look at the movie. It was billed as The Making of Star Wars, as told by C-3PO and R2-D2. But William Conrad was the true narrator of this special. In his warm leather voice, Conrad detailed the creation of this sci-fi spectacle. It was one of the earliest documentaries of its kind about Star Wars, because it just had come out, one that inspired thousands of children to become filmmakers themselves. Oddly, Conrad, for some reason, who knows why, Conrad's original narration for that show, that documentary, was replaced on the VHS version later. Could have been a contract thing. Who knows? But I do remember seeing it in his voice. Do you remember the opening of Buck Rogers in the 25th Century?
Yes.
Dun, dun, dun. Buck Rogers, frozen by temperatures, blah, blah, blah. That's William Conrad. That's William Conrad.
I know the voice.
If you needed to explain a concept or a backstory in 30 seconds, Conrad was your man. We miss it when TV shows would clearly explain themselves like this at the beginning, instead taking 2 pilot episodes to do it. He only did it in like 30 seconds in an opening narration for the TV show. William Conrad, we talked about Filmation. We talked about Fat Albert with Pat McCormack. But William Conrad also worked for Filmation cartoons as well every Saturday morning for a while.
The Lone Ranger. Io Silver! Away! A fiery horse with the speed of light, a cloud of dust, and a hearty Hi-Yo Silver, the Lone Ranger.
Saturday mornings with Filmation Television, which for a while wound up being the Lone Ranger Tarzan Adventure Hour. They'd team him up with Tarzan. William Conrad provided the voice and the narration for The Lone Ranger in 1980 on CBS. He was also, he went under a pseudonym for The Lone Ranger. He wasn't billed as William Conrad. I think it was J. Darnock. And I think it was a play on his name backwards. I mean, they took so backwards it's Conrad. That's sort of Conrad. I don't know where they got the J from, but he was billed as J. Darnock as the voice of the Lone Ranger because it was him, and maybe I think it was him and his manager didn't want him to be associated with the cartoon at the time because some people thought, if you do the cartoon voice, you're too legendary of a person to be connected to that, and I guess he bought that. But I don't know. It was kind of weird for him not to put his own name on there. But it's him. It is him. There was a short-lived show in 1983. I don't know if it started out on the early Fox shows or whatever, but do you remember a show in the 80s called Manimal?
Yeah, I remember.
About the guy who's a detective that turned into animals or whatever?
That was ABC, I thought.
Well, the crime-solving adventures of the shape-shifting man Manimal, and I think it was Simon McCorkadale that played him, I think. It opened with the roar of a panther, but Conrad was the real beast behind the microphone, providing the uncredited narration of the action hour. He actually spoke for the narration of the show. And for a long time, don't know whether you remember this or not, and I don't have one queued up, I should have, but there was a you remember the First Alert smoke detectors? They were called First Alert. Mm-hmm. For the longest time, he did the First Alert commercials. It was William Conrad going, get the First Alert alarm detector.
I think he just got pegged as being an authoritative voice.
And he was
like
one.
When he said something like, I should probably do what he told me.
Yeah, because he has this voice, kind of like Morgan Freeman or James Earl Jones. Any of those guys, William Conrad, they tell you to do something, pay attention and do it. But legendary voice, William Conrad. His was his birthday. I did have some information on him like that, so I was glad to bring it and play it. I've got one more story here. Can I squeeze this in before we end the show? I don't know.
Well, I hope so. Otherwise, we're going to have 5 minutes of dead air.
Maybe I can. Let's try. There's a concert coming up. There's a concert coming. If you identified as a little Danny Elfman Batman there, that was Batman the Animated Series, which is pretty much the same theme to the 89 movie with Michael Keaton, directed by Tim Burton. There was a theme of Batman you'll never forget. DC announced the 35th anniversary concert tour for Michael Keaton's 1989 Batman. To honor the anniversary, DC is organizing a special concert tour where the film's epic Danny Elfman composed soundtrack, the whole soundtrack to the movie, will be performed live in a symphony by an orchestra along with the film's screening. That's right, they are going to show this film on this. I didn't know they were going to show the big film on the big screen as it plays, but they are. Now, the full schedule and ticketing information can be found at DC Film Concert. Batman was released on June the 23rd, 1989. The tour will commence at the Dolby Theater in Los Angeles, California on January 13th next year, 2024, and span across various cities, including Washington, D.C., Tampa, and Atlanta, here in Atlanta near us on Friday, February the 2nd. So that means we got a little time to get ready for it. Additional dates will be also announced, giving fans across the globe a chance to witness the experience. Why it's hoped that Michael Keaton might make a surprise appearance during the tour somewhere, it is yet to be confirmed. Now, wouldn't that be cool if it was Atlanta where he showed up and we went to see it? That would be nice. The tribute follows in the footsteps of similar event from last year, which featured the orchestra performance of the music to various DC movies, including 2017's Justice League and 2022's The Batman and Black Adam as well. So DC's doing like a movie tour of music, kind of like they did with Harry Potter and The Empire Strikes Back and Star Trek and a lot of those that do that. I think it's awesome. You went to see Empire Strikes Back, and it was great. I got to go see the Star Trek presentation at the Fox, and there's something about hearing that music detached from the film and just hearing the detail that was put into it and how it is to go. But you'll be able to. Now they're doing it with Batman and Danny Elfman, and I think that's a good one to do it with. I would look into if scheduling and the pocketbook will allow us to do it.
Probably more than scheduling. I could schedule it. I don't know if I can afford it.
That might be something to do if we're not doing anything, to go down and see it. It's probably going to be at the Fox, I think, probably because that's where those orchestral things in Atlanta usually show up.
You don't think it'd be at Atlanta Symphony Hall?
Well, it might be Symphony Hall, but it was the Fox where we saw the Star Trek one, so I don't know. They have them at different places. Was The Empire Strikes Back at Symphony Hall?
Yeah.
Okay. Then I guess they might use both.
Because it was part of the Atlanta Symphony programming.
Okay. This may be. I don't know if it's part of their program. This sounds like it's independent of that, like it's a traveling show, but I don't know. Either place I'd go to because they're both great venues. It's very disheartening to think that at one point in Atlanta they were going to tear the Fox Theater down at one point.
I know.
And every time you go to it, you ask, why? Every time I walk into that majestic place.
It's a great theater.
It's based on like the Arabian, it looks like Arabian castle or something. It's got that motif that's beautiful.
I remember the very first time I walked into the Fox Theater, and I was like, they really get you feeling like you're outside.
Yeah, they do.
You're in a courtyard.
It's amazing. And
I was blown. I had never seen a theater like that.
I'd never been to the Fox back in the day, but the first thing I saw at the Fox was Nutcracker. Their presentation of the Nutcracker with the live orchestra and acting out the entire ballet. Later on, they started using recorded music, but I think they have since went back to having the actual orchestra there play it. So, yeah, that's always fun. I was the weird kid. I was the one that always bought the soundtracks that were the orchestral scores to film. They're like, what are you buying that for? I'm like, because I like it. I mean, I can blame when I went to the library, my local library growing up in Center, Alabama. they had a record player there. We could rent records, but listen to them while you're there at the library and put your headphones on and listen to them. Back when we did that, So I sat there and I rented a record once called "Holst the Planets."
Oh my goodness!
By Leonard. It was Holt. The composer was Gustav Holst, I think was his name. But it was a Leonard Bernstein New York Philharmonic recording, and I just listened to it and I'm like, this is after I'd already heard Star Wars, my Star Wars soundtrack by John Williams that I had on record back at home, and I listened to Holst the Planets, and Star Wars and Holst the Planets were the two records, the two pieces of music, the soundtrack to Star Wars 1977. Are the pieces of music that I blame, and I don't blame them in a bad way, I blame them in a good way, for my love of orchestrated classical orchestra music, be it classical music or a film score.
Right.
I mean,
we don't have a lot of time, but I told you before when I did some research on this for a guy I was interviewing, that was a bomb when Holtz came out because they were like, it had no flow, it's cacophonous.
Yeah, it was
and
too
now
modern.
You look at it and they go, oh, it's the template for our modern scores for soundtracks today.
It really is.
He really wrote, technically, your first movie score.
It is. Even Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country, the main title is based on Mars, the beginning of Mars, the planets, believe it or not. It's BK on the Air. Thanks for being here. Thank you for being here. So glad to be back.
See you next month.
We'll see you next month and on the podcast.
Starring William Conrad, with guest stars Ann Baxter, Barry Sullivan, and special guest star David Jansen. Also starring Murray Hamilton, Tim O'Connor, Louise Troy, Lee Purcell. Tonight's episode, He Who Digs a Grave.
Goodbye.